Did you ever hear about Henry Ford, the guy who transformed the car industry and became a legend in the 20th century? Back in 1879, a 16-year-old lad decided to leave his father's farm and head toward Detroit. At that time, trains and horse carriages were the primary modes of transportation, and cars were mainly considered toys for the affluent. But this young lad had bigger dreams. Fast forward 35 years, and this very same boy changed the entire automobile industry as we know it today. Can you believe it? Half of all the cars on this planet were proudly bearing his name. The boy was none other than Henry Ford, and his success made him one of the wealthiest men in American history. That is the story of Henry Ford coming into this world on his dad's farm in Dearborn, Michigan, back in 1863 on a sunny July 30th. His father, William Ford, owned this cozy little farm where the whole family resided and worked together. As the oldest of the 6 siblings, everyone expected Henry to eventually take the reins of the family farm. However, Henry was quite a unique character, miles apart from his dad. He never really shared his father's passion for the family business. In fact, farming was the last thing on his mind. Back in those days, farming meant long, grueling hours and exhausting toil. While Henry did lend a hand on the farm to the best of his ability, he simply loathed the whole idea of it. Henry, just like many kids his age, wasn't a big fan of school and never made it past the 8th grade. He had a unique way of learning things and preferred doing it on his terms. Fueling this independent spirit was his profound fascination with mechanics, which sparked at a young age. This natural curiosity for machines drove him to eagerly study every piece of machinery he encountered. When Henry reached the age of 13, he stumbled upon a steam engine during a school excursion to one of Detroit's company. It was his first encounter with such a marvel, and it ignited a newfound passion for mechanics within him. Over the next few years, tinkering with machines became his new obsession and hobby. By the time he turned 15, he had even managed to construct his steam engine. However, life had an unexpected twist for Henry. It was a devastating blow when his beloved mother, Mary Ford, tragically succumbed to a sudden illness. Their bond went beyond words, and Henry felt an unparalleled connection with her compared to anyone else on the farm. The loss hit him hard like a ton of bricks and only intensified his resentment towards the farm. It was filled to the brim with memories of his dear mother, and he simply yearned to escape the painful ache in his heart. Determined to seek a fresh start, fueled by a strong desire to change, Henry took a bold leap at the tender age of 16. Despite his father's disapproval, he gathered his belongings and said goodbye to the village, ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and find a new path in life. Moving out of town. In Detroit, a rapidly growing city driven by the steam engine and hungry for young engineers, Henry Ford embarked on a journey of self-reinvention. He joined the Michigan Car Company Works, a streetcar manufacturing company, but was fired after just 6 days. Undeterred, he became an apprentice at James Flower & Brothers Machine Shop, earning a meager wage of $2.60 per week. To make ends meet, he took a night job as a jeweler, cleaning and repairing watches for $3 weekly. Despite his multiple jobs, Henry remained dedicated to studying and experimenting with machines in his free time. At the age of 19 in 1882, Henry decided to return to Michigan, where he spent most of his time playing and tinkering with machines on his family's farm. His father had purchased a portable steam engine, and Henry's skill in operating it became known among his neighbors. Word of his talent spread, reaching the Westinghouse Engine Company in Schenectady, New York. Impressed, they hired him to travel throughout southern Michigan, setting up and servicing their steam tractor engines. In 1885, Henry met Clara Jane Bryant at a New Year's Eve party, and the following year, they've got engaged. As a wedding gift, Henry's father gave him 40 acres of land. However, instead of turning it into a farmland, Henry had different plans brewing in his mind. The new engine. In 1891, Henry and Clara moved to a small apartment in Detroit. It was during this time that Henry came across a British magazine and learned about the gas engine. This engine, invented by German engineer Nicholas Otto, was more efficient and convenient than steam engines. Intrigued by this new technology, Henry sought to understand how the gas engine worked. To gain knowledge about the gas engine, Henry applied for a job as a night engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company, the largest electric company in Detroit. His role primarily involved fixing the steam engine used for generating electricity. During his free time, Henry immersed himself in learning about electricity and its applications. In 1893, Henry and Clara welcomed their first child, Edsel Bryant Ford. 3 months after his birth, Henry was promoted to the position of chief engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company. This provided him with more resources and opportunities to pursue his passion for engineering. In 1896, after several experiments, Henry successfully built his first working gas engine, which he named the quadricycle. It was a basic vehicle consisting of 2 bicycles placed side by side and powered by a gasoline engine. Although the quadricycle had some issues, including a lack of cooling system, Henry continued to make improvements. He eventually sold the vehicle for $200 and used the money for his next project. These early experiences and experiments laid the foundation for Henry Ford's future endeavors in the automotive industry. With the support of the Detroit mayor, Henry Ford built his second experimental car, which was completed in July 1899. This new vehicle was larger, sturdier, and heavier than his previous creation. During a test drive with a wealthy lumber merchant named William Murphy, Murphy expressed interest in joining Henry's business venture. They formed a partnership, and on August 5, 1899, the Detroit Automobile Company was established. Unfortunately, the company faced challenges and ultimately failed within a year. Disagreements arose between Henry and the stakeholders regarding the direction of car improvements. Delays in parts deliveries from various suppliers hampered production. The company's first car, the delivery wagon, took 6 months to make, and only 20 units were produced during its first 2 years. As a result of these difficulties, Henry was fired from his position. However, despite the setback, Henry remained optimistic. After being relieved from his position at the Detroit Automobile Company, Henry Ford found himself with less pressure and more freedom to explore other endeavors. He turned his attention to racing cars as the sport had gained significant popularity in the United States. Henry saw racing as a platform to showcase the quality of his cars and gain recognition. Despite knowing influential people in the city, few were willing to invest in his ideas following the failure of his previous venture. A year later, Henry's newly designed racing car triumphed over the vehicles of Cleveland automaker Alexander Winton and the nation's leading racing driver in Grosse Pointe. The success and popularity of his 26 horsepower vehicle garnered the attention and confidence of investors. This led to the birth of the Ford Motor Company, with Henry serving as the chief engineer. However, Henry's position as the company soon became uncertain once again. his investors grew frustrated with his focus on racing cars instead of creating passenger cars for mass production. To appease the investors, they brought in another engineer named Henry Martin Leland to fulfill their vision. Ford was displeased with the decision to replace him and subsequently left the company. Once Henry Ford bid adieu to the Ford Motor Company, things took an interesting turn. The company decided to rebrand itself as the Cadillac Motor Company. As for Henry, he teamed up with the former racing cyclist Tom Cooper and they continued their tireless efforts in constructing racing cars. And voila! In the year 1902, they unveiled the mighty Ford 999, a beast of a car boasting a whopping 80 horsepower. This marvelous creation not only outshone Winston's car but also tasted immense triumph. Fast forward to 1904, Henry Ford's new masterpiece obliterated all American records, zooming at a mind-boggling top speed of 91.4 miles per hour. These extraordinary accomplishments cemented Henry's position as the pinnacle of American racing car designers. With his impeccable reputation, Henry knew that investors would be more eager to back him once again when he decided to embark on his next venture. With the support and financial backing of 11 investors, including Alexander Young Malcolmson, a coal dealer from Detroit, Henry Ford's third company was established. Initially named Ford and Malcolmson Limited, it was later changed to the Ford Motor Company in 1902. Determined not to experience failure again, Ford shifted his focus towards creating an affordable vehicle for the average person. During that time, owning a vehicle was a luxury reserved for the wealthy, as cars were primarily designed by highly skilled engineers and mainly used for racing purposes. As Ford embarked on his new company, his goal was to revolutionize the automobile industry and make car ownership accessible to the common man. Ford had a talent for recognizing and recruiting top talents in the industry, assembling a team of exceptional young individuals who shared his vision and beliefs. In his pursuit of creating a successful automobile, Henry Ford went through more than 20 design iterations before finally achieving a working model, which he named Model A. Over the next 5 years, he continued to refine and enhance the Model A, leading to the development of the Model N. However, the significant transformation during those 5 years was not solely in the improvements to his car designs, but rather in how they were manufactured. When Henry Ford visited a slaughterhouse in Chicago, he got this incredible idea about the assembly line. He thought, if I use this method for building cars, I can crank up production. So in 1904, Ford gathered more money and opened his factory, hiring a bunch of workers, around 300 of them. He then started experimenting with the whole assembly line thing, and by 1906, the Model N was being made using this concept. It wasn't perfect yet, but boy, did it make a difference. The assembly line made production go through the roof, increasing it 5 times over. No wonder the Model N became the most popular car in America. Henry was on a roll, and in 1905, he went on to establish his own manufacturing company, making all sorts of car components like engines and transmissions. And guess what? Around that same time, he stumbled upon something called vanadium steel, which was stronger and lighter than the regular stuff. He knew he had struck gold and used it in his revolutionary Model T, a car that went down in history as one of the greatest success stories ever. Henry Ford's dream was to create automobiles that were affordable and accessible to the average person, and the Model T was the realization of that dream. Although it initially had a relatively high price tag of $150, equivalent to around $21,000 today, it quickly gained popularity in the US. Within days of its release, the Model T received 15,000 orders, propelling the Ford Motor Company to become the leading car company in America. To increase production capacity, Henry Ford built a new factory in Highland Park, Michigan in 1910. After various experiments, the assembly line system became fully operational by 1913. This innovative method involved bringing the work to the workers, with the vehicle moving down the line as it was progressively assembled. This streamlined process dramatically reduced production time from 12 hours to just 90 minutes. By 1914, Ford was producing over 300,000 vehicles, surpassing the combined output of all other car manufacturers. From 1910 to 1916, the number of Model T cars produced skyrocketed from 20,000 to nearly 1,000,000, making Ford responsible for about half of all cars in existence at that time. Henry Ford implemented another brilliant strategy to stand out in the automobile market. Each year, as the production output of the Model T increased, he reduced the price of the car. By 1916, the Model T, once sold for $850, was now available for less than $400. Additionally, to address the discontent among workers regarding the repetitive nature of assembly line work, Ford doubled their wages to $5 per day. This move surprised many, as competitors believed it would lead to bankruptcy. However, it had the opposite effect, attracting skilled mechanics from across the country who were seeking higher wages, further strengthening Ford's workforce. Indeed, Henry Ford implemented additional groundbreaking changes that revolutionized the business and manufacturing landscape in the United States. In addition to doubling the wages of his mechanics, he also reduced the number of hours they were required to work, granting them an hour off. This adjustment enabled Ford to introduce a third shift and establish a 24-hour operation. This innovative approach attracted even more workers and put pressure on other car businesses to adopt similar practices to retain their employees. Henry Ford's transformative measures had a profound impact on the industry, reshaping the business and manufacturing practices across the United States. In 1919, Henry Ford, dissatisfied with the interference from other investors in his company, decided to buy them all out. This move made several millionaires in Detroit, but more importantly, it established Henry Ford as the sole owner of the largest automobile company in the world. Subsequently, Henry appointed his son Edsel Ford as the president of the company. But it was Henry who maintained the ultimate control. However, the absolute power Henry possessed over the company came at a price that even the wealthiest man in America couldn't ignore. Despite the growing popularity of more stylish and comfortable cars like Chevrolet, Henry Ford remained convinced that the Model T was the car people truly wanted. He disregarded the advice of other Ford executives, including his son Edsel, who urged him to develop a new model. Eventually, declining sales figures forced Henry to shut down the Model T assembly line in the late 1920s. He then designed and released the new Model A in 1927, which was produced at a larger factory in Michigan. However, Ford's one-man control and decision-making approach no longer proved successful. By 1936, Ford Motor Company had fallen to third place in the U.S. market. Despite innovative designs like the V8 engine, Ford struggled further during the Great Depression, leading to layoffs and rate reductions. In 1943, Henry's son passed away. And 2 years later, Henry transferred control of the company to his grandson, Henry II. Henry Ford retired to his estate and eventually died of a cerebral hemorrhage on April 7, 1947. Life is a journey of experiences that shape us, even though it can be challenging to recognize their value. The world is designed to cultivate character, and we must understand that setbacks and hardships contribute to our progress. Today, Ford Motor Company boasts a market capitalization of approximately $70 billion, solidifying its position as one of the largest car companies globally. If you found this valuable, don't hesitate to like and subscribe to receive more inspiring content like this. Till next time.